Sorry about it. But we're gonna talk about cancel culture. Duh. Full disclosure. I know there's a lot that I probably don't know. If you have more that you think is very relevant to this discussion that I could benefit from, and you feel so inclined as to leave that in the comments or share that with me, I would appreciate it. I also don't spend all my time fixating on the publishing industry's opinions of J.K. Rowling's pretty gross transphobia, or white male comedians and their very large fear that they suddenly won't make as much, might be finally called out on the sexual predation that many of them have been found to commit. But we're not gonna go there. But I don't want to spend all my time obsessing over cancel culture because, spoiler alert, I don't think it's a thing. I don't know if you guys saw, it was a while ago, but the Smithsonian Magazine posted something really truly fascinating about considering the meme as a living organism, or at least partially living. So there's a collection of traits that we expect an organism to have in order to consider it living. These generally include the ability to respond to the environment, the ability to reproduce and adapt or evolve through reproduction, the ability to pass traits onto its offspring, the ability to maintain homeostasis or manage its own safety of its organs, like our internal temperature, right? We manage that. Is made of cells, do its own metabolism processes. This is why viruses are considered partially living organisms, because they don't meet all the requirements. So ideas obviously do not meet all of these qualifications. So they're not made of cells, and they don't do homeostasis. They don't have an internal temperature to manage. However, we're beginning to notice that ideas do seem to behave in a way that is very similar to living organisms. They compete for resources, the resource being our brain space. Ideas compete for kind of dominance over the general social imagination. Some ideas eventually die out, some ideas prosper. This just depends on which ideas manage to take root in as many brains as possible. And the theory is that every time an idea passes from one brain to another brain, it's essentially reproducing. It almost gets reinvented each time. Each brain might contribute something new. It might adapt over time. It might adjust. It might have information added or detracted. Often, it can be, think of the modern meme, how one idea or one image even can suddenly be presented in so many facets, in so many ways of twisting a joke based on a certain concept. The meme has really drawn massive attention to the reproductive and competitive nature of ideas. How human brains attach to ideas is not always based on objective fact. Oftentimes, the ideas that we are attracted to may or may not be factual. Now, facts are very competitive. They're competitive because they're observable and repeatable. Many people are going to experience the sun setting and rising. Many people are going to be able to observe it, communicate it, and it will be repeated. In that sense, it's very hard to fight that idea, and that idea will take massive societal root. The good news is there is a preference for facts. The bad news is that preference is no guarantee facts actually win over ideas with emotional or especially social benefits. That being said, that's nothing new. Ideas have always had to fight for space in our very complex chemical, emotional, biological process of experiencing ideas and having dopamine, serotonin, etc. reactions. So that's not new, but cancel culture is. Some of the major reasons for identifying cancel culture seem to be a complaint that it is threatening freedom of thought. Freedom of thought, as I understand it, is our freedom to hold or maybe just consider a thought or an idea or a viewpoint regardless of other viewpoints. I understand the attraction to that independence, that I can think something even if no one else thinks it or no one else likes it. The reality is, we all still have that freedom. I can absolutely think whatever I want. In fact, you might not even know what I'm thinking. So, how is cancel culture infringing on freedom of thought? Let's look at the most recent J.K. Rowling case. She didn't just have a thought, but she took an action. She posted on a social medium. Now, a couple things about Medium. If you know the famous quote, the medium is the message. Medium essentially affects how we are conveying and communicating information. I mean, just even think about pointing light through a prism. You make a rainbow because of the process of sending the light through the medium of the prism. Whereas you can point light into other mediums and you'll get other results. Additionally, mediums communicate their own messages outside of just the words I'm communicating. So I had a whole bit on this, but just watch Lindsay Ellis's video on manufacturing authenticity for YouTube. It does a way better and way more in-depth job of explaining this than I ever could. Okay, thanks, bye. The medium of social media implies that it's a social setting, that it's as if we were just together talking at a cocktail party. However, the medium is inherently performative. You are presenting information for a perceived audience. I am not myself on social media. I am a curated version of myself. I am a performative version of myself that befits the medium. Social media also has a different scope. It reaches a different amount of people, a different community of people than just me saying something in my home. And the minute I post something, or even the minute I say something out loud, I've turned a thought into an action. I've now made a choice. But what about ideas you're not sure of yet? You're still tossing around or trying to figure out for yourself.
So even if you fail, it may seem intense, but you probably fell in front of max 30 people.
Most comedians will tell you, you try out new jokes at an open mic. The venue is understood to be a place for leniency of mistakes. Additionally, the scope of who you're affecting is small. You're not going to fall on your face in front of thousands of people.
If you're getting what you need to get out of it, which is progress, which is experience, which is exercise, then that's that.
Instead of shouting it from the social media mountaintops, perhaps you explore and grow with ideas privately, with research, or in small groups, such as in-person conversations, or in the case of COVID, phone calls or Zoom calls. You will find you have a lot more leniency provided by human nature and your fellow humans in those settings than in the setting of social media. And it is not the responsibility of social media to protect you from your choice of medium. It's your job to understand that different conversations benefit from different mediums. Don't even get me started on the information that how social media makes its money is by selling your data and selling you things while you're on social media and using that data to sell things to you better. And most people would say fear and sex sells. So social media probably is going to inherently select for fear and sex-based material in order to sell you things better. I could go on about the complicated money-making and communication manipulation that is this medium we're all struggling to figure out. That's probably for another video. We are more than our sum total of ideas. I have changed my ideas. The ideas that I subscribe to or believe or stand behind, those have changed, and I'm still me. However, ideas also provide the framework from which we make choices, decisions, and then act or behave. I made a choice to have the thought in the first place, and then I made a choice to present the thought, essentially attempt to propagate it, to encourage its reproduction in the brains of others by sharing it. That is an action and a choice that affects others. Actions have consequences. If I affect others, others can affect me by responding positively or negatively to my choice.
There's a lot of pressure.
Now, some people also critique the degree to which cancel culture seems to hold people accountable, right? They say, oh, sure, people should be able to boycott businesses and artists and idea champions that they don't agree with. But there's a mob mentality, and the punishment doesn't fit the crime. Mob mentality is also nothing new to human nature. Evolutionary biologists suggest it has a survival tactic. It takes a village is more than just a fun idiom. It's considered by evolutionary biologists to be a fairly true statement. We are social creatures, and so our brains often seek to identify an in-crowd, whatever that means to us, however we perceive this in-crowd, and we want to be a part of it, according to this theory, because it's a survival tactic. This might contribute to a mob mentality. I'm not a fan of mob mentality. It's kind of scary, and I don't like to participate in it. But mob mentality is not the same thing as cancel culture. Social media reaches a truly global audience, and trolls are just a part of that audience. But a lot of other people might have very legitimate criticisms or challenges to your ideologies. In addition to a potentially natural instinct to seek inclusion in the herd, there is also presumed to be a survival instinct for an exchange of ideas, to connect with other human beings via ideas. This is largely in part as a way, prior to this massive internet that's the most unlimited library we've ever thought of, communicating ideas was our way to expand our data set and to get more information that maybe would make us more competitive, maybe would teach us something we needed to know. Your response group, for many, many years before some of our travel innovations and our technological innovations, was limited to a certain community. Demographics mattered in so many ways for much of marketing, even newspaper writers, because where you were influenced a lot of who you were reaching. The internet has changed that.
Now we can talk about algorithms, so we'll get there a whole other day.
In many ways, social media means your ideas can reach a relatively unlimited audience. So before, ideas that maybe didn't get a very negative reaction might suddenly seem to have an extremely negative reaction it didn't have before. But is that because we're suddenly involved in this culture that gets off on canceling things? Or is that because your idea is being tested and challenged by a much wider range of people?
So, this can create common realities, which I think has always been a problem in the global arena, that we've all been entitled up to this point to our separate realities. And so there's an American reality about the Middle East that's quite different, for example, than the Russian reality of the Middle East, much less what it looks like on the ground in the Middle East.
Communities or demographics who have been marginalized or silenced now have ways to be heard in an unprecedented manner, courtesy of the internet. If your idea cannot stand the test of a larger audience, then maybe it's not a very competitive idea. Maybe it never was, you just didn't know. Are there going to be people online who just say mean things for the sake of saying mean things? Have you seen a Yelp review? Of course. In my opinion, posting or presenting ideas or products or ideas packaged as products on the internet or social media opens you up to scrutiny and challenge and exchange with marginalized voices you may not have heard from before, communities that you have no experience with, straight up trolls, people on your side for the wrong reasons, people on your side for the right reasons. You are truly putting your ideas to the test of a larger pool of people. And your idea might not come out on top, no matter what you're used to. And maybe that's a good thing. Yes, maybe you're scared of the idea that people could actually affect someone's career or their profit margins. A lot of individuals who are trying to make societal-wide change know that the best way for us to do that is to hit you in the capitalism where it hurts.
in town and you're trying to hit them where it hurts. Their wallets.
And in many ways, those communities are using that voice to affect powerful institutions who have been able to drown them out for ages. And boycotts and economic responses are one of the ways we're trying to do that, trying to change powerful institutions. If you have the freedom to make a choice about an idea and then to choose to proponize, defend, share, and act on that idea, I have the freedom to criticize that idea and make choices about purchasing based on my ideas. And not even to get into this topic, but most of the time, those who are complaining of being canceled are not losing profit, are not losing money, are barely being anything other than disliked. Meanwhile, the world has a long history of doing far worse, as in murdering, raping, pillaging, etc., people for reasons that were not actions or choices that they made at all. But if you want to learn about that, Some More News is a YouTube channel that does a way better video on the true systemic realities of cancel culture and how there is plenty of money and profit still being made by the groups who claim to be canceled the most and suffering the most. So, another critique of cancel culture is that it's a personal attack on someone for holding a belief. Perhaps we're seeing this recent bit particularly with authors in the publishing industry, because the line between self and idea is very blurred in a writing industry, in creative industries, but particularly ones where your ideas and your words are what you sell. Heck, in a society full of capitalist rhetoric and moralization of capitalist values, we can be encouraged to think of ourselves as products or brands that are preparing ourselves for consumption by our fellow humans. But we are not products. We are not just what we sell. If we're selling something that people don't want to buy, they don't have to buy it just because they want to be nice to us. And they might be telling us, human to human, that an idea is ill-founded, misinformed, an act of danger to society, and telling us that in honor of our humanity, in an opportunity to grow as a human, and as a recognition of their humanity. Just like I have a choice in what to believe in, I have a choice in how to change and when to change my beliefs. Anyone, myself included, who has ever felt canceled at any point gets the moment to pause and reflect.
Ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
There's a reason an honest apology and true reform goes a very long way. Many people do not consider you the sum total of the ideas that you have sold, but they do hold you responsible for the ideas and actions you have chosen to have and commit. And if you choose to continue to grow your ideas and make better action choices, other humans recognize that and appreciate it. If you've noticed, so many of these comedians who feel shut down, or authors or editors, it's not always in their initial statements. It's in how they handle being confronted. It's how they handle the very discussion, argumentation, and challenge that the Harper's letters say they want. In my opinion, if anything is an extension of mob mentality, it's the concept of cancel culture. Cancel culture invents an imaginary mob that allows everyone who feels victimized by their ideas being scrutinized to band together and form a mob joined by the common enemy of cancel culture. The Harper's letter a lot of people are talking about right now said it's crucial to be able to challenge ideas and argue ideas and exchange and communicate ideas. I could not agree more. And this very cancel culture that the Harper's magazine is decrying is doing exactly what they say they want. It's challenging these ideas on a much wider scale. It's criticizing some of these ideas, and I think it's a lot harder to process the complexity and the mess that the internet is a place full of a variety of people with a variety of intentions behind their responses to your message, when it's so much easier to just label the whole mass that the defensive part of you perceives as attacking you as the cancel culture mob. If you choose to accuse them of being some kind of rabid mob out to get you, so you can disregard their statements, disregard their experiences and their contribution and their challenge of your ideas, then you are not open to the discourse and the exchange of information that you claim to want, and you are just looking for a way to avoid accountability. And even the ugliest parts of this supposed cancel culture is nothing new. The only thing new is our exposure to a much wider audience and the demands of accountability being a bit higher. And I think ultimately that can get us a way better pool of ideas that we're developing. I think it's only threatening to mediocre and uncompetitive ideas. So maybe it's not cancel culture. Maybe it's higher standards. And it is exhausting to think about living up to even higher standards. But just imagine the wealth of thought and idea that we can get to from having our ideas be competitive on a truly global scale and with a diversity of audiences. Do we really want to die on the hill of a mediocre idea? Or do we want to take the chance to be a part of the new frontier of growing ideas? We're built for it. That's my 2 cents. I'm maybe not always the best person to give these 2 cents. I am just one voice, and I am a voice limited by and made valuable by my unique traits and experiences. I encourage you to get multiple sources and data points from as different audiences as you can. Anyways, thank you so much.
I gotta go eat something.
My videos aren't usually like this. I don't make this kind of thing. I normally like